All right. My name is Tristan. I'm the founder of Sales Partner for Founders. And I am going to share um, generally the three stages I see in terms of building a sales team beyond a founder, beyond the early days. So typically, this is your company when I would want to come in and help you with sales. You have built a good product, that you have a gap in the market that you're solving for. You have revenue from, let's say, approximately 10 customers. And it's sizable enough revenue to give you the option of looking at scaling. And you're excited because, obviously people are buying and you're making some money. So what typically happens here is founders are faced with some options for scaling, and some of them will try to be cheap and go with the all commission offer, which doesn't mean a whole lot because there's not a lot of data to say if you work for me for free, you'll see a significant amount of commissions close. Commissions closing being an offer that a sales rep can work off of typically comes in later when you have more of a proven sales cycle. Because then you can say, look, you're already in this industry. If you do some sales for me, you can expect to see this based on these processes. Okay. So they'll try all commission. They'll either go for a high paid, high experience sales rep from a similar industry. Or they'll try like a low cost sales rep with not a lot of experience. They'll try VA support. They'll try some technology solutions or firms like that are doing consulting to tell them like how to grow their sales team. In this case, I'm going to share my model, but with us, we are a fractional sales solution that not only consults, but we do sales activities for you. We help test the sales strategy. We help drive for progress in terms of sales action. So here's what it is. I'm going to go through three stages, and that's the way I'm going to categorize it. There's the developmental stage, there is the standardization stage, and then there's the flywheel stage. And I'm estimating about a year for each, typically. And the reason for that is mostly it takes time to take in sales data, understand it, iterate messaging and strategy off of that data, and come down to a real solid sales process that can just be repeated, which is the flywheel stage, right? Okay, so you got your money, you got some customers, you got a product, things are on the right track. Now you got to scale. So my recommended process looks like going through a developmental stage for a sales team. Not necessarily that you need to develop your product more at this point. Obviously you do, but this is all about the sales team development. So the first year of sales effort with any option is really about development. So you create your strategy. That's the very first step. You need to have a sales strategy. Whatever that means to you, you can try to make your own. But if you work with me, I would guide that process with my team, and you'd have a dedicated fractional sales rep to do the activity and prove that sales strategy. So you make the sales strategy first, and then you start executing sales. The first thing you got to do is take action. So that sales strategy doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be there because you're going to go back to that and improve it. So you create strategy, execute sales, then you take a pause, a moment to assess your sales efforts. And in that same time frame, you then also go back to your strategy and improve it. And this cycle repeats often, and it needs to happen often, but in a very processed, consistent way. During that first year, every week, every month, really, you are assessing sales efforts, improving strategy, improving or creating strategy when you're in those assessment moments, and then you're executing again. And it's key that you execute and assess and create strategy at the same time in a cycle. Because if you create strategy in a vacuum without executing sales to test it, you don't really know if that strategy is quite right, or if the wording you're using for messaging is quite right, etc. All the different aspects of strategy, qualification, for example. So that's the first year pretty much. You keep doing that over and over, And asking lots of questions, hard questions is important. Not just saying, oh, this messaging's so amazing, I'm going to keep trying it for the whole year. You don't want to do that. You actually want to probably on a monthly basis be trying a different version of your messaging based on what's happened from that first month to the next, and so on. Now, it's important to note, depending on how much consistency you put into this cycle, it could take more than a year for this stage to really complete. Um, and it's not so much an end point as a transition point. So developmental stages, I would say heavily about data. You need your base data with someone outside of the founder team or product team trying to sell your product. Because if it doesn't work on a fractional basis, it's not going to work with a full-time sales hire, which is much more expensive. All right. Okay, so once you finish the developmental stage and you have all that data and you've made a lot of progress on strategy, you enter the standardization stage, which I would say ideally would take about a year as well, because it's not just standardizing, it's testing that standardized process. So now you're not so much creating the initial messaging and ROI data and like how to talk about that. You're now standardizing what you're going to tell people to say, who you're going to have them target. Uh, you're probably going to be identifying some partners either now or maybe solidifying some partners or just kind of locking in who you want to focus on as a partner, right? That's going to probably be happening here or already has happened to a certain extent. So you standardize the process. That means you just start saying, we know these are good areas to spend time. These kinds of accounts. And what's the feature of those accounts? Blah, 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 blah. Who in those accounts do we need to talk to? We're going to standardize that as a targeting feature, right? We're going to standardize what we're going to say to each. And that's going to cover a few different things. Like if I work with you, I'll help you develop a power statement, something that I've learned about and used with multiple clients that has been very effective. So we're going to standardize that process. And then again, goes back to executing sales. You always got to be executing sales. You just have to be doing it with your brain inside your head, you know? You don't want to be just busy or acting out of urgency only. You need to have a certain amount of focused effort when you're doing sales execution. Sorry. So just to clarify that, executing sales is very obvious to me, but it's making phone calls, sending emails, setting up automations where if you have technology for that or budget for that, where you can use those technologies. It's taking meetings, it's going to events if there's a useful event that's very targeted and has a clear ROI for you, et cetera. So, and anything that you would consider straight B2B sales, that's what we're talking about there. If it's more of an inbound product transaction, this could be taking inbound requests and meeting requests for understanding the product or taking phone calls about the product, right? That could be the sales activity where you're testing messaging in that front. So again, once you've executed the sales on a weekly basis, you want to have a check-in call, just kind of a sales motion check-in call. And that's going to serve to have a little bit of the pulse of what's happening, right? Within that last week, what were some things that came up, if any? Some weeks you're not going to have a lot of new information because you make efforts to reach people, but they don't always answer. And so you're not going to get insights from conversations or notes from meetings. You might just have a grind where you go after the market and nothing really happens that week. So that does happen. After you assess those efforts weekly and then in the monthly call, which is a little bit longer, you're also going to be, again, going back to your strategy. Any ways we can improve our strategy, any ways we can improve our standardization. So I need to probably update this slide, but it would be improving strategy and standard process. That's the difference here. Strategy is going to probably be less malleable at this point. There may be moments where you come up with an epiphany and you realize there's something to do with strategy that's very different. But most of the time in this stage, you're going to be slightly adjusting that and more primarily going to be updating standard process. So once you complete that stage, again, not necessarily a year, not necessarily an end to the stage, but once you hit that transition point where that standard process you can say is reasonably solid and it's working, in the sense of quarter by quarter, you're seeing value from it in terms of meetings, progress, deals, etc. Then you're entering the flywheel stage. So the flywheel stage is mostly on the side of executing sales, but it's also going to factor in staffing a sales team. One of the biggest challenges with startups and one of the biggest mistakes I see is utilizing full-time hires, FTEs, where it's just not necessary. Now, I know with investors, sometimes there's a thought that having employees is the better option, but in my experience, investors care about their money coming back with an ROI. So if you show them you have a clear plan and you show them a conservative spend that progresses sales, but is also managing money well, with insight and clarity, that's going to mean something to them because it shows them that their money is being handled with care. And that's also important because later we're going to get into investors here. So, but yeah, you're executing sales as a combined unit. So products, founders, sales team, like that's us partnering with you. We're all going to be aligned on sales, but we're going to be looking into what sort of staffing do we need? Do we need a full-time SDR? Are we ready for that? Do we need an AE or do we just need a full-time SDR helping fuel us with meetings, etc., right? Do we need a sales operations contact, or could we have an outsourced team help us with those types of things? Likely, my team would be able to supply someone because of our network and experience in this area too. So we either could do it or supply it. And I would also point out, as a solution, we are a team, right? So you're going to have the sales partner for founders team that helps on the consulting strategy and even a little bit of the execution side when it is necessary. But you're mostly going to have that and a dedicated rep that's fractional, right? And that's going to be more in those first two stages, the developmental and standardization side. In the flywheel stage, we may either double down on that investment in terms of what that dedicated rep does. So maybe invest a little more time from that person, or find another person like them that can join in. Or we pivot our work to another strategic effort, which might be that sales ops side. So I might find someone to come in and join on the sales ops front alongside of that other rep that's doing that straight sales work, and going to be one of your most experienced sales reps. So there's a few ways that can happen, but also the key value is that it keeps your cost managed. So you're progressively investing in improving strategy and sales at work. But at this point, you should be in a place to start hiring some staff if you want to as well, that are just going to focus on one part of the sales process. So, and then from there, it's enabling sales. That's typically another strategic thing that we would do. Once we hit this point, we would start to focus on what do they need in terms of enablement? What about our process and documentation isn't clear enough to the average sales hire or someone coming in who doesn't know our product or industry and buyers? So that's going to be a big part of it. Partnerships is going to be another strategic focus. Just doubling down on how to monetize partnerships or how to cultivate the partnerships so that there's a nice give and take of referrals, even if there is no financial incentive. I recommend having financial incentive for everything, because it sweetens the deal. And like in some cases where someone might decide not to refer, if there is an incentive, it can push that through, right? So all of this is strategic because you're also going to be looking at investors. Even if you want to own your business forever, it's good to have relationships with investors, because it gives you an option either for continued growth and expansion, or for exiting. If you decide, I just want to focus on my family more. I need to have more time for my kids, my wife, or my community. I want to move into hunting more, whatever. At a certain point, you might decide you just want to exit and focus on other things in life. So I highly recommend having some investors that you start courting, um, because you want to be in a position to have five investors that you like who you can work with if it becomes important. So, and the important thing here is once you start talking to the investors at this point, at this stage of your development, you're going to look a lot better than them. You're going to know your partners. You're going to have a process. You're going to be enabling your team. You're going to have a strategy that's clear. You're going to be able to have sales data to point to when you're talking with them about your plans. So it's not just going to be hopefulness and optimism. It's going to be, no, here's the data. And when this happened, we pivoted to this. When this happened, we made this choice, and that was really good for us. We proved that out through sales activity with this partner of ours, sales partner for founders, who was guiding that process, but keeping our costs managed. So, and then after that, as you have partnerships, investors, and staff involved, you have to go back to your strategy because there's other categories that come up now. Perhaps from the investor perspective, you might have to start looking at ways you want to report sales data to more formally have something to show investors, right? You may have to modify to have partnerships content. Like, what are we going to do from the sales side relative to partners? How are we going to connect that new element, right? And then with staff, what you're going to have to add in management processes. So these are all things that relate back to strategy. And I believe no company should stop staying in touch with their strategy. They need to have that consistency because year to year, things start to slide. You start to lose touch, and the quality of your original plan degrades. So again, you got the three stages here. You're going to start in developmental, you're going to go to standardization, and then you're going to be in the flywheel stage. And that's all a complete solution guided by all of our experience and another customer knowledge and insights we have. You're going to get our team plus the dedicated rep that's going to focus on just executing to make your strategy successful or highlight areas where we need to improve strategy. And that person can grow into a really great asset directly for your team. So reach out if you're interested. If you want to understand a little more about how you can engage with us in that manner, we are looking for new clients, and we just need to know like your industry and what you already have in place. So that way we can specify and customize how we engage with you to help you grow and succeed as a startup. And again, I will recap the main reason for this business is to reduce startup failure rate. That stems from three things that are common reasons for failure. The three common reasons for failure are choosing the wrong sales or marketing strategies, having poor product market fit, or just running out of capital. So this whole solution, a sales partner for founders, the way we work with clients is designed around eliminating those reasons for failure and raising the likelihood of you having a prosperous business and being an employer for the community, and also being able to, exit and enjoy your family and loved ones. My number is 619-248-1795. Like a good salesman, I have to give you my number so you can reach out. Again, 619-248-1795. It's myself. Have a good day.